Let me tell you about a violinist. In January 2007, a man named Joshua Bell walked into a Washington, D.C. subway station during the morning rush hour. He wore jeans and a baseball cap. He opened a violin case, pulled out his instrument, and began to play for 43 minutes. What most of the 1,097 people who walked past him couldn't know from looking at him, was just 3 days earlier, the same man had filled a concert hall where tickets sold for over $100 each. The violin in his hand was a 1713 Stradivarius worth $3.5 million. And in 43 minutes in that subway station, 7 people stopped to listen. 7 out of 1,097. Now I want to ask you something. What does that story have to do with your expertise? Everything. Because the problem wasn't Joshua Bell's talent. The problem wasn't the quality of the music. The problem wasn't even the audience. The problem was the context. The same excellence, the same instrument, the same person. Invisible, because nobody knew how to see it. That is exactly what is happening to your knowledge right now. And today, day 6, I'm going to give you the formula that changes it. 6 days in, here's where we've been. Day 1, the institution is not safe. Day 2, here's why you keep hiding. Day 3, here's what you already own. Day 4, here's how to package it. Day 5, 18 income streams hiding in what you already know. Today, day 6, is the day the message gets built. Because here's what I've watched happen over and over. And maybe you felt this yourself. Someone does the work. They identify their expertise. They build the offer. They package it correctly. They price it right. And then they go to talk about it. And it falls flat. Not because the offer is wrong. Not because the audience isn't there. Not because the timing is off. But because the language isn't landing. Because there's a massive difference between knowing something and being able to make someone else feel what you know. And in 2026, in the most saturated content environment in human history, that difference is the whole game. Researchers studying the attention economy right now are consistent on this. The creators and brands that win in 2026 will not be the ones with the most content. They will be the ones with the most compelling, differentiated, integrative narratives. Not content, narratives. Today, I'm giving you the framework that builds the narrative. I call it the SAM formula. And once you understand it, you will never communicate about your expertise in the same way again. Let me show you 2 versions of the same message. Version 1. I help coaches and consultants build scalable online programs using proven frameworks and systems that generate passive income. Version 2. Most coaches are brilliant in the room and invisible online. They've spent years developing expertise that changes people's lives, but their message sounds like everyone else's. I help them find specific language that makes the right person stop scrolling and think, this person is talking directly to me. Same expertise, same offer, same person delivering it. Which one made you lean in? Which one made you feel something? Which one are you going to remember tomorrow? That gap between the version that sounds like the LinkedIn bio and the version that sounds like the real conversation, that gap is the messaging problem. And it is costing brilliant people an extraordinary amount of money every single day. The research is clear in 2026. One analyst found that storytelling boosts conversion rates significantly because narratives trigger emotional engagement, memory, and loyalty in ways that featureless never can. Not slightly better, never can. Another research studying content and messaging in 2026 put it plainly. If your content isn't landing, if your messaging feels messy, if people aren't connecting, trusting, and buying, it's probably a story issue, not a strategy issue, not a platform issue, not a niche issue, a story issue. Here's the reason. The human brain is not wired for information. It is wired for story. When you lead with a list of features, credentials, or benefits, the logical brain engages. The part that evaluates and compares and asks, is this relevant to me? When you lead with a story, the whole brain engages. That part that feels, that part that remembers, the part that says, I've been in that exact moment, where that is exactly what I'm going through right now. And in a world where AI can generate unlimited amounts of information, unlimited features, unlimited bullet points, unlimited benefit lists, the thing that AI cannot generate is the felt experience of a real person's real story. Your story is the moat, but most experts, especially the most accomplished ones, resist telling it. Because we were trained in environments that reward data and penalize emotion. We were taught that professionalism means keeping the personal out of the professional. We were taught to lead with credentials, not experience. We were taught that if we just explain the offer clearly enough, people will buy. And then we watch someone with half our expertise and a better story outsell us 2-1. And we cannot figure out why. Today I'm telling you why, and I'm handing you the fix. The SAM formula has 3 components. S is story, A is analogy, M is metaphor. These are the 3 tools that make expertise felt instead of just understood. And when expertise is felt, it converts, it spreads, it sticks in the memory of the person hearing it long after the video ends. The post scrolls away, the conversation closes. Let me break each one down. S, story. A story is not a summary of what happened. A story is a moment, a specific, sensory, I was there moment that drops the listener into an experience they couldn't have had any other way. There's a difference between these two things. I spent years working behind the scenes in corporate America before building my own business. That's a summary, it's accurate, and it means nothing to anyone. Versus, I was sitting in a room where decisions worth millions of dollars were being made. And I was the one person who made them possible. I built the strategy. I solved the problem no one else could solve. And when the meeting ended, they thanked someone else. And I drove home thinking, how long am I going to keep doing this? That's a story. The first version tells me what happened. The second version puts me in the car with you on that drive home. And the person watching who has ever sat in that room, who has ever been the invisible architect of someone else's success, feels it in their body, not their mind, their body. That physical recognition is what makes them comment, share, DM you, book the call. Now here's the principle I want you to hold. You do not need dramatic stories. You need true ones. The subway station moment wasn't Joshua Bell climbing Everest. It was a Tuesday morning commute. The drama was in the contrast. A $3.5 million violin, one of the greatest musicians alive, and 7 people stopped. The drama in your story is in the contrast too. The expertise in your head versus the income not yet in your hands. The brilliance in the room versus the name on the credit. The value you've given versus the salary you've been paid for. And the contrast? Tell the moment. That's your story. A for analogy. An analogy takes something complex and unfamiliar and connects it to something simple and already known. It is the fastest bridge between what you know and what your audience can grasp. Here's an example. If I want to explain why packaging your expertise matters more than the expertise itself, I could say your positioning is the primary driver of perceived value in the knowledge economy. Accurate, meaningless to most people. Or I could say Evian and tap water are both water. One sells for $3 a bottle and one comes free from the faucet. The difference isn't the water. It's the bottle. It's the label. It's the story attached to it. Your expertise is the water. Your packaging is the bottle. Right now, you're tap water with Evian knowledge. We're going to fix that. Same concept, completely different impact. The analogy works because the listener doesn't have to learn anything new to understand it. They already know water. They already know Evian. You're just using what they already know to show them something they've never seen before. Practice this. Every time you catch yourself explaining something with industry language or multi-part concepts, stop. Ask yourself, what does this remind me of? What does everyone already understand that works the same way? That question is where your best analogies live. M is for metaphor. If an analogy is the bridge, a metaphor is the door. It doesn't just help someone understand a concept. It gives them a new way of seeing something they've been looking at their whole life. A metaphor collapses layers of meaning into a single image. And once someone sees through that image, they cannot unsee it. I could say, your knowledge has economic value that you haven't monetized yet. Or I could say, you are sitting on an oil field you never drilled. Same meaning, but the second one does something the first one doesn't. It makes you see yourself on land that has always been yours. Valuable, resource-rich, full of potential, and realize you've been walking across it every day without knowing what's underneath. That image stays. Most experts are like Joshua Bell in the subway station. World-class talent, the right instrument, the wrong context. And the world walks past without stopping. That's a metaphor. And I opened this entire video with it because I wanted that image in your mind before I say a single word about messaging or frameworks or formulas. The metaphor was doing the work before the lesson began. Now here's what I want you to practice. Start collecting metaphors. Keep a note on your phone called images. Every time you read something, hear something, see something that captures an idea in a single visual, save it. The violinist in a subway, the oil field nobody drilled, the tap water with Evian knowledge, the identity that caps how far the business can grow. These images are the furniture of your communication. They make the room feel like somewhere people want to stay. Let me show you how all three work together. Because the real power of Sam is not using them individually, it's stacking them. Watch what happens when I build a piece of content using all three. I want to communicate this idea. Most people are giving their best expertise away for free and don't realize it. With just information, it sounds like this. Many professionals undercharge for their knowledge and fail to monetize their expertise appropriately. Nobody shares that. Nobody feels that. Nobody remembers that. Let me build it with the sand. Story first. I had a client, brilliant woman, 20 years in her industry. People called her constantly for advice, free advice, hours of it, weekly. And one day she added it up, just roughly. She had given away over 400 hours of consulting in a single year. At her market rate, That was $80,000 gone. Not because she didn't deserve to be paid, because nobody ever told her she was allowed to charge for it. Now the analogy. It's like being a master chef who cooks incredible meals for friends every weekend for free, while a mediocre restaurant 3 blocks away charges $150 a plate for food that doesn't come close. The talent isn't the problem. The pricing structure is. Now the metaphor. She was a treasure map with no legend. The treasure was real. The map was detailed. But without the legend, without the language that told people how to read it and what it was worth, it was just paper. Do you feel the difference? The first version told you a fact. The Sam version took you somewhere. It put you in the room with that woman counting the hours. It put you on the street outside that restaurant. It put the map in your hands. And now you will not forget it. That is what the SAM formula does for your expertise. It doesn't change what you know. It changes what people experience when you share. And in an attention economy where AI is producing unlimited information every second, experience is the only currency that compounds. Here's how you start building your SAM library. This is not a one-time exercise. It's an ongoing practice that gets richer every week you add to it. For stories, go back through your life and your career and look at contrast moments. Moments where what you knew and what the world recognized were wildly different. Moments where you were almost invisible and then went back into hiding. Moments where someone else got the credit for your thinking. Moments where you solved something that nobody else could solve. Write 5 of those moments down. Not the full story, just the image at the center, the room, the conversation, the drive home, the email, the moment of recognition. Those are your stories. For analogies, every time you explain something complex in your work, write down the simple version. Ask, what does everyone already understand that works the same way? Keep a list called bridges and add to it every week. Your best analogies will come from unexpected places. A conversation with your kid, a line from a book, something you saw at the grocery store. For metaphors, start with the images that already live in you, the phrases you use in conversations that make people eyes go wide, the comparisons you reach for naturally when you're explaining your work. You already have these. You just haven't been writing them down. Start writing them down, because your most powerful SAM elements are not the ones you manufacture. They're the ones you'll remember. The stories from your real life, the analogies from your specific experience, the metaphors that only make sense because you've lived exactly what they describe. Nobody else has your SAM library. That's the point. The SAM formula is chapter 2 of KnowNet Work, because I believe messaging is the second most important thing you build after identifying what you have. Most people build offers and then wonder why they don't convert. The reason is almost always messaging. Not because the offer is wrong, because nobody can feel what you're selling. The book walks you through building your own SAM library with exercises, with prompts, with the real practice of developing language that makes your expertise unforgettable. $29.99, free shipping, ebook immediately. Link is in the description. And if you're ready to build the messaging and the offer and the income streams and the systems around all of it together in community with coaching, Trailblazers is where that happens. Founding price $2,000, going to $6,000 after the first 50 seats. The Clarity Call link is in the description. 20 minutes, real conversation. Let me bring you back to the subway station. Joshua Bell, 43 minutes, 7 people stopped. A researcher who studied that experiment said something I want to leave you with. She said the people who stopped the 7 weren't music experts. They weren't people who recognized them. They were just people who slowed down long enough to actually hear what was being played. They stopped. And when they stopped, they recognized something extraordinary. Your audience is walking past you right now. Not because what you have isn't extraordinary, because they haven't heard it in a way that makes them slow down. The SAM formula is how you make them stop. Not by being louder, not by posting more, not by chasing algorithms, by telling the story that makes them recognize themselves, by drawing the analogy that makes the complex suddenly obvious, by using the metaphor that shows them something they've been looking at their whole life in a completely new way. When they stop, they will see exactly what you have, and they will not walk away. Come back tomorrow, day 7. We're going to talk about why your story is not just personal. It is intellectual property, and how to use it as the foundation of authority that compounds forever. Share today's video with someone who has world-class talent and messaging that nobody's hearing yet. They need the formula. Let's go.